Well, my participation in the biennial is two different works. One is called My Westphalia Days. It's a work that I made probably 2 years ago or so. And it's really kind of a departure piece for me because it takes a specific event that happened in Europe a couple of years ago, and then I kind of develop it as a fictional film. My Westphalia Days takes as a starting point an event which is a work by other artists. His name is Michael Asher, and he has been doing this specific project for 40 years. Every 10 years he proposed to an exhibition called Monster, Sculpture Monster, to put a caravan in different places in the city, and they moved the caravan from place to place every week. But in the fourth edition of this, so 40 years after it was first initiated the project, the caravan was stolen for a few days. So I just tried to recreate what could have happened during those days that the caravan was lost. It's a film that starts where the caravan was last seen, and it ends where the caravan was found. To me, it was interesting to sort of extend Michael Asher's work and to first think of a different way of seeing the city and seeing the context through this film. For Michael Asher was very specific. Most of the documentation is still images. Some of the locations are around Münster, but rather close to the city, and where the piece was found is actually farther away. I don't know, like an hour away from the city. So I kind of went around, and to me the idea first was to kind of extend that piece and sort of see the caravan in other places, and also to try to think about the different ways of documenting something. So to me it was also like a way to see that caravan going around, moving actually, and documented in film instead of stills. Actually, the way the film is it's constructed, when you see the film, it's 15 minutes, and the film there's no sound in it, and you just see this road trip, almost like a very it's kind of a romantic film in a way, but there's no explanation whatsoever. Only at the end of the film you see what the point of it is, and where the film starts and all this. And so I think, to me, the idea is that the film could be experienced first as an actual fictional film, narrative fictional film, and then when you see the reason for it, then you might see it again and have a second take on it. The first project was called What Happens in Halifax Stays in Halifax. It really started as a very personal question. I had done some works that had to do with expiration, works that will cease to exist at some point. And then at some point I was told that there was a project by Robert Barry that was related to this. So I started to look for it, and then eventually I realized that the project was something that was submitted to something that was called a projects class in NASCAD, in the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design. Robert Project's idea was, instruction was to ask the students to gather and agree on an idea and keep it as a secret. And when the secret will leave that group of people, then the work will cease to exist. So to me, this created a number of questions, and in relation to what is the work. You know, the work is actually the idea, or it's actually Barry's idea. When the work is finished, or somebody is actually give away the idea, does that mean that the work really ceased to exist because it existed before? So what becomes the documentation of this? And all these questions I already had because of the works that I had made. And so I just sort of started to try to understand this, and But instead of going directly to Robert Barry, I went to try to look for the students who actually had made this, because I first wanted to know if the work still existed, if it was still a secret. To people who remember being in the class in that specific period and remember being part of this project. So with them, we tried to reconstruct how things happened and what had happened. And they told me that, well, the first thing they told me is that they hadn't told anybody. It was actually for another biennial that I made this project. My participation in another biennial in Lithuania was to gather these students and the professor and bring all of them back to Halifax, where the class had happened, and we'll go back to a house where actually the class was held and talk about it. So that became the piece that I'm presenting here in a larger installation. Is the documentation of this meeting along with the story of the research, basically. What was interesting in terms of the research was how to ask if the work existed without really destroying it. How to go around this without really never asking the question, you know. The piece that I made is not really about art. I mean, at the end, it's really more about memory, and it's about friendship, and it's about other things than really about Robert Barry and conceptual art.